Let's talk about our self concept today as we're starting chapter 6. Think about who you are. And you may think about roles. You know, you're a psychology major, you're your mother's daughter, um, you work at the grocery, you are babysitting your older sister's children. You might think in terms of those roles. You might think about your strengths and weaknesses, that you're compassionate and strong and a good runner. You may think about your interests, that you particularly enjoy coding and reading science fiction. All of these things are part of what create our self-concept. And your self-concept and my self-concept may include some of the same things and some very different things, both because of our real differences, but also because of our values and differing values and goals. Carl Rogers talked about these in terms of necessary and sufficient conditions. And he said that these three things are what allow us to become who we are. So he focused on unconditional positive regard. So no conditions limiting my giving you acceptance. Accurate empathy, our ability to understand somebody else, and genuineness, being real, authentic, congruent. So here's an example of conditional positive regard. Just remember, son, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose unless you want daddy's love. That's conditional positive regard. Now, if we stopped and said, just remember, son, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, and delete the rest of it, then we're talking more about unconditional positive regard. We like, being loved regardless. Although many of us really worry about being rejected, not being good enough, not being loved for who we are. We often don't really feel heard by the people around us. And so we may try and put other people in a box where we expect that they should act one particular way. That would not be accurate empathy. What we need to do is recognize that our experience may be different from somebody else's experience, and yet, and so recognize that in the same situation, we may perceive it differently because of our different worldviews, our different values, our different goals. Now, we've also seen people who we perceive as ingenuine, not, people who are fake around us, and for whom we don't really trust. We feel like they are telling us what they think we should hear. Having someone who is accepting, empathic, and really gets us and genuine with us allows us to be free and to become who we really are. Allows us, instead of being incongruent because we're trying to meet somebody else's expectations about who we are, allows us to be congruent and have our actual self and ideal self be more consistent. Higgins and Rogers both talked about the role of self-discrepancies, where for example, the actual self, who we really are, is different from our ideal self, who we want to be. And that when that happens, we're disappointed, we're dejected or sad. You know, we want to be like this other person or like our ideal self. And we experience depression. On the other hand, when our actual self and our ought self, our should self, what we think we should be like, are different. You know, if you think that you should have a, you know, clean, well-decorated house, and that's just not where you are, you're likely to experience anxiety, irritability, and guilt, particularly if you're someone who judges yourself for that. And as a result, you may experience an anxiety-related disorder. We don't see ourselves clearly all the time. And in fact, both the woman and man here see themselves in one way, while their partners see themselves in a very different way. And in general, we want those to be more consistent. When we think that affection from others is conditional, we don't like that. And so we distort, you know, in some way in order to feel worthy of that person's affection, which increases this incongruency and causes us to feel anxious and to engage in defensive behavior to protect this inaccurate self-concept. That's a problem. Some of us are able, like person 2, to have more congruent public selves. So the people at work, at home, your friends, your neighbors, all see similar kinds of people. Now, we present somewhat differently in different environments. That's okay. But if we're more like person 1, where our public selves are very different, that becomes more of a problem. And take care. Bye-bye.